Start. Good afternoon or good morning, perhaps, depending on where you're joining us from, and welcome to our webinar today. My name is Scott Clayson. Thank you for joining us, and you are in the right place if you are here to listen about how TimeSolvPay can help decrease your accounts receivable and increase your profits. I see we have several people who are still streaming into the webinar here, so I'm gonna put myself on mute, give you guys an extra minute or so to get your cup of coffee, a sandwich, water, smoothie, whatever it takes to get you through the next 45 minutes or so of this webinar. And I'll be back on about another minute or so. So thanks, everybody. Okay, I don't know if that was officially 60 seconds or not, but I am going to go ahead and get started. It's several minutes now after the hour, and we did have one or two more people that that streamed into the or got into the webinar here. So once again, thank you very much for joining us. You're in the right spot for our session today on how TimeSolvPay can help decrease your accounts receivable and increase your profits. My name is Scott Clayson. I have a guest with us here as well today. And we're hoping that in the next 45 minutes or so, you'll have a really good understanding as users of TimeSolv, the real benefits of making sure that you use TimeSolvPay that we have built into the tool to your advantage when it comes to collecting payments. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's take a look at our agenda. I'll do the introductions of myself and our guest that is joining us today. And then I want to get into several learning objectives for today's webinar. The first one is talking about the whole concept of why we should be receiving electronic payments from our clients for the work that you do. But more importantly, not just meeting clients where they are, but meeting clients where you are as well. And I'll explain what that means here, obviously, as we get further into the webinar. And then I want to introduce TimeSolvPay to you, where it is in the application, how you can become a TimeSolv, how you can use the processing through TimeSolvPay, apply for it, and so on. We'll talk a little bit about processing fees, because that's something that comes up frequently when it comes to taking electronic payments, is processing fees that go along with that. And then at the end, and the kind of really sort of the meat of this, is the key features within TimeSolvPay to really help you increase your collection rates. So again, we should take about 45 minutes to an hour, roughly. I know we have an hour scheduled for this. Everybody is on mute. You should see at the bottom of your screen a Q&A icon. That's where you can ask questions. I can't guarantee I'm going to get to it immediately when you ask that question, but we will address those near the end. And I do have a couple of poll questions that I will be asking to make this a little bit more interactive. So that is what's on our on the docket for the day. So let's talk introductions here. Who am I? So for those of you, I see a couple of familiar names that have been longtime users of TimeSolv. I was the marketing director at TimeSolve for 5+ years. I'm now technically with the parent company that owns TimeSolve, called ProfitSolve, and have been there in that capacity for the last 6 or 7 months. But obviously have a lot of work that I'm still doing with TimeSolve, along with the other companies that are part of the ProfitSolve group. But more importantly, I've spent 20+ years in the marketing world. Used to be a high school history teacher, so I love doing these webinars. And I do have a fetish, maybe, I guess, for trying to cook the perfect steak. For Valentine's Day, my wife, she ordered these amazing Wagyu steaks from, I don't know, someplace out in Idaho, like Snake River Farms, I think it's called, and cooked them up stovetop style on a cast iron skillet. I mean, they were amazing. If you haven't had Wagyu beef, somehow find a way to make it happen, because it was one of the most amazing steaks I've ever had in my life. So I'll stop there. I could do a whole webinar on my addiction to cooking the perfect steak, but I won't. I do want to introduce Adam Holden. Adam is, again, at the ProfitSolve level, the director of sales for all of the payment integrations that are with the various companies. Adam, well, let me introduce, I'll let you say hello and introduce yourself a little bit.
Hey, Scott, how are you, everybody? It's been a little while, Scott.
It has. Adam and I have done several webinars before, but it's been, we were joking right before this that we're a little out of practice, aren't we?
Yeah, I'd say so. But
well,
yeah.
We're hoping that we're like glove in hand. We're like riding a bike. It will like just pick it right back up again. We also laugh that one of the bios that we used to have for Adam is that he runs a 5K every day, and he informed me that's just not happening anymore, huh?
Yeah, no, that doesn't happen anymore. COVID, things during COVID got a little weird, so I had a lot. I had some time, but not much anymore. So maybe once a week.
And what's the irony is that when you told me about that, I've been an off and on runner for years, and I probably do run or walk a 5K, at least a 5K every day now. So maybe I should put that in my. I had to work off that steak that, that I like to consume. So okay, but more importantly, for our purposes here today, Adam is an expert in the payment processing field. And specifically for law firms, because there are some not tricks, but various regulations and rules that lawyers have to be more aware of than perhaps other industries when it comes to taking electronic payment. So Adam is a seasoned veteran in not only payment processing, but integrated payment processing with the existing tools that you may be using to help run your firm. And so he will bring in a real level of expertise here as we go through this webinar. Okay, so that's who we are. Let's start talking about, as I mentioned at the top, meeting clients where they are. And the point here in this discussion is, I'm going to make the assumption that everybody here, I hope, accept electronic payments to some degree or another. And according to the Clio's legal trend report that came out, I didn't grab the one from 2021. I know it's out, but the one from 2020 marked that 65% of all consumers prefer to pay through electronic payments. And you all can probably as well think to yourselves, when was the last time you actually wrote a check for services? I know personally, I think my checkbook has been used all of maybe like 4 times in the last 12 months. I don't know, Adam, what about you? Do you ever write checks anymore?
Yeah, no, I don't write any checks. I think I've written maybe like 3 checks ever. And even everything is electronic.
Right, everything's electronic, especially, we're talking kind of maybe B2C type of stuff where, as consumers, we're paying for our business with electronically, but even a lot of B2B businesses, in other words, companies themselves are getting away from actually writing checks and sending them in the mail for services rendered. I know from the experience at TimeSolve and now the parent company ProfitSolve, we prefer to pay everything via ACH, essentially electronic check, and do it in that fashion instead of actually printing and mailing a check. And that's an important part of e-payments is oftentimes people think e-payments, they think just credit cards, but that's not true, right, Adam?
Correct. Yeah. I mean, we also have, what we call, electronic check or e-check, also known as ACH, where you're actually paying with your bank account and routing number. So it's just another form of digital payment to, cut down on having to put something in the mail or, writing something physical.
And we'll talk a little bit about why that may be an attractive or something you shouldn't forget about when accepting electronic payments when it comes to processing fees. So there is a difference there. And there should be a note, this is a little bit of a side topic, but if you do hear ACH or e-check, it's essentially the same thing. I think there's like some subtle differences, but it's essentially the same thing, right?
Correct. Yeah. ACH, also known, automated clearinghouse, which is what all electronic checks have to actually flow through. So, it's just another name for it, but it's known to the general public as e-check, electronic
Yeah.
check.
But the main point is if you hear one or the other, there's no real difference. So what I'm not going to do our first poll question here for the attendees. I'm going to go ahead and launch this. Again, it's been a while since I've launched these polls. So I'm asking the question, do you currently accept e-payment? It's a simple yes or no answer. So if you want to take a minute or two here. Okay, looks like we have almost everybody has participated, so I'll go ahead and end the poll. And I'm going to share the result. So it should be sharing this on your screen, I think. In that 63% of our attendees here that answered are accepting electronic payment and 38% are not. So that's almost right on with kind of the 65% of consumers prefer to pay through electronic payments, and 63% are accepting electronic payments, at least in this group that we have here, which of course it's a smaller sample size. So we'll talk a little bit more about how you're accepting electronic payments here in this next slide, because I skipped it one. Not all electronic payment acceptance is created equal. And by that, I mean, accepting electronic payments or credit cards or ACH could come in many forms. Adam, help me out here. How could somebody, what are the various ways somebody could accept electronic payment at their office? I'm putting you on the spot. We didn't even practice.
So no. So I mean, you can either accept it over the phone by typing, the credit card number into, some people have a terminal, maybe a physical terminal that sits on the desk.
Right, where you swipe the card,
you
chip it, or that like you find at a grocery store or something.
Exactly. Yep. And then you can also be keying into there if someone calls in, or you're logging into what we call a virtual terminal or a gateway and entering those credit card numbers into there and processing the payment that way. So there's a couple of different ways that you could do it, outside of the software, non-integrated. And then you also have on the other side, integrated.
Right. And that's where, that's why I put the second bullet point of meet your clients where you are, because the methodology of accepting payment, the whole idea is we want things, firms want to act, well, all businesses want to act as efficient as possible. And a lot of that means time and how many steps do you have to go through to accomplish something? In this case, accept payment for your work. How much work do you have to go through to accept money? And meeting your clients where you are means taking payment in the places where you find yourself, quote unquote, living on a day-to-day basis. In other words, living in TimeSolv. You guys are all who are here at this webinar are customers of TimeSolv. You use it to generate your invoices. You use it to generate your time entries, to create those invoices, send those invoices. You record payments in TimeSolv. You allocate those payments to invoices in TimeSolv. So why not actually take electronic payment in TimeSolv? It just is logical. It makes sense. It makes things faster, easier for you than some of those other methods that Adam just described. So, which gets me to my second poll question. And I want to ask, I believe I was still sharing that result. Okay, that's good to know. I got to get that off the screen. Somebody's got to remind me of that. Adam, you got to remind me to make sure I turn off the sharing.
Doesn't show on mine.
Well, that's good. Maybe because you're a panelist. Maybe it wasn't showing at all. Okay, so I'm asking the question. I'm going to launch it right now. How are you accepting e-payment? For those that were, the 63% that were, I put in 3 options there. Does a client call in with the information and you run the payment manually? And that could be through the terminal, like Adam described, or it could be through a gateway on a website that you log into that website to a portal and key it in that way. Does your client access a link from your firm website or an email, a link that's in an email when you send your invoice, or using a client portal to submit payment? So it looks like, again, we've had about half the people have answered this, and it could be other. I didn't put other as a as an option. I suppose there could be. Those are the ones I could, I thought were the most logical. I'm not even sure what the other way might be. Besides, yeah, if you call in with the information, you run the payment manually. That covers a lot of different options, depending on if you have that terminal or if you're accessing a portal of some sort. So I'm going to go ahead and end the poll, and I'm going to share results here, and it shows that it's kind of across the board. A third of the people who answered, a client will call in with information and run the payment manually through whatever mechanism. 17% the client will access a link from the firm website or a link in an email, or the last 50%, the client does use a portal to submit payment. So we'll talk a little bit about those, the variety of when we talk about the way you can accept payment with TimeSolvPay a little bit later. And I think you're going to find we're going to work through from the least efficient method to the most efficient method, because there are a variety of methods with TimeSolvPay in which you can accept electronic payment. We obviously would advocate to use the most efficient method, but if that doesn't line up with your existing process right this this very day at your firm, we totally understand. But we want to let everyone know all the variety of ways in which you could accept payment with TimeSolvPay. So we'll get to that in just a little bit. Okay, so let's dive in and actually talk about TimeSolvPay itself. For those of you that may not be set up to use use us as a payment processor, we'll walk through it quickly, how you go through the application process, what information is needed and why, and how long it usually takes to get approval, and then before you can actually start running payment through TimeSolvPay. So I'm going to go ahead and move ahead accidentally. I'm going to go ahead and bring up TimeSolvPay here, where it's available and where you can start the application process in TimeSolv. So when you log into TimeSolv, a lot of you will hopefully have seen by now that in the main menu, there is a TimeSolvPay nav item here. You want to go from TimeSolvPay down to settings. And when you get there, if you're not already a TimeSolvPay merchant, you'll see a page that looks just like this. And this is where you can start the application process. And we feel like that we have a step-by-step process that will make things fairly painless. We try to lay out, here's all the information you're going to need to have available to make the application process work. We even have an enrollment checklist. So if you click on that link you just saw me click on, it'll have a PDF of all the specific information that you would need to provide during the application process. And there are, like right now, 4 or 5 different screens. You are asked to provide a lot of kind of banking information. And I don't know, Adam, you can speak to this better than I can, especially if I bring up this enrollment checklist again, of what the variety of things that often hang up applications when people are applying for TimeSolvPay. Let me make that just a little bit bigger so people can see that.
Yeah, the number one thing that we usually see that holds up an application would be the need for a void check or a bank letter to verify the bank accounts. Even when we're putting them through our systems that do verify these accounts, we do want that information on file. That way, if something were to happen, we always have a hard copy to refer back to double check the systems. So, that's the number one thing that I usually see. So when we are filling out those applications, it's always best to have that information available and ready to upload.
And if, for those that are already accepting payments through some other tool, whether it's Stripe, PayPal, LawPay, whatever it may be, this isn't relatively new stuff to go through. Correct me if I'm wrong, Anna, but I know one thing that I feel like I've heard is can sometimes hang up applications is this part about who's the actual owner of the business. And if there are partners who have 25% or more ownership, they all need to provide their information, correct?
Correct. And not only is this, making sure that we're signing up the correct people and protecting everybody's, identity from, fraud or, financial fraud from somebody stealing it. We also have a duty to the IRS to, report, the financials that, we have passing through our systems and who's passing that through. So that's, those are the two reasons why, we have to collect that information from anybody who has a deciding factor or a majority ownership in the company.
So as long as you have some of this stuff accumulated before you start the application, it really will take you about 5 minutes to sign up. And once your application essentially has been fully submitted and signed, what happens after that, Adam?
Once everything's assigned and agreed to, that goes directly into the underwriting queue. And as long as nothing hangs up the application, we can have an application approved, within around 2 hours and have the firm processing and accepting payments the same day.
And if there is something hung up in underwriting, you will be contacted by a TimeSolvPay representative, correct?
Yes, typically by the individual who helped you sign up or was guiding you. They would be reaching out to you to collect any sort of, supporting documentation or verifying any information that may need, extra verification.
Okay, great. Well, again, we're not going to go through all the rudimentary, I don't say rudimentary, but a lot of the details here of sign up, but making the assumption that you are signed up with TimeSolvPay, you then will be able to see under TimeSolvPay in settings that after you are signed up, you will need to link TimeSolvPay to the merchant accounts that you may have already created in TimeSolv, which you can, again, have done under payment and settings and so on. I won't go through the details here, but you do need to then connect TimeSolvPay as your processor to your accounts where you want to have payments received into. And TimeSolv support can help you with that. TimeSolvPay support can help you with that as well. So we're going to make the assumption that you are approved, you're ready to sign up and accept payment through TimeSolvPay. So I want to walk you through a couple of the features built right into TimeSolv that will really help you collect payment easier, faster, and make your life a lot less painful, hopefully. So let me walk through where you can store payment information for your clients. And this is a sneaky great way to assure payment on an invoice by accepting payment information up front, just like we all do when we, signed up for Netflix, when we sign up for Amazon Prime, whatever. Your utility bills these days. I mean, Adam, I don't know about you, but I gave my credit card to my gas company one time, and I've set up to just have them charge that, unless I do have it set up, unless the my monthly bill exceeds a certain amount, then I can wait and look at it and figure out why it's so high. But it's something that we're all used to, right? Giving our payment information out when we sort of agree to the terms of service.
Yep, exactly. I mean, I don't think that I have anything where I have to actually remember to send a payment into. Everything is on auto payment.
I would encourage those of you on the webinar here today to, in your intake work that you do when you have a new client, when it comes to the payment arrangements, use that as an opportunity to collect with a credit card authorization form, which you can find anywhere. I mean, you go do a Google search for a credit card authorization form template and acquire and ask your new clients to submit their payment information, whether it's a credit card or their ACH information. And then we will, let me show you here where you can actually store that information in TimeSolve for future use. So let's get back into TimeSolve here. Oh, a question did come up. Can you set which account you want money to be deposited to, trust versus operating? And the answer is yes. You can determine when you're accepting payment, like if you are doing trust accounting, for example, you can go to your trust here and run the credit card and have it go to the trust account. Same thing if you set up the client portal, which I'll talk to you just briefly about. You can determine whether you want payments that come through the client portal to go to your operating or trust account. Good question. So let's talk about where you've accepted payment, or you've accepted the payment information from a new client. Where you would go in TimeSolve then is into the client and matter area. And for any of your clients and matters, you can essentially store that information either at the client level up here or the individual matter level. Now, I'm assuming that most of you, if you're working on multiple matters for one client, are probably going to have the same payment information for all of those matters. So it probably is more logical to store that information at the client level. So let's go ahead and click on a client. And I'm not even sure if this one already has a payment information set up or not, but we'll find out. When you're at the client level, you'll see there's a tab called Payment Settings. So let's click on that tab here. This is where you would then just either enter the credit card number or the bank account information if they provided ACH information. Okay, so again, you just click on enter credit card and boom, 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 put in all the pertinent information, and it's going to then store that information on file. You don't get to see, and the other people at your office don't get to see the credit card number. Instead, you've probably seen this in other tools. You will only see, and I'm going to a different client right now, you'll only see the last 4 digits of that credit card number and know that it's a Visa with the expiration date and so on. So you don't see anything more than this if you already have a card on file. So this is where you would store your payment information. Again, you can do it at the client level. You could, if you so needed to, go to a specific matter and do it at the matter level as well. I don't think those circumstances would come up very often, but perhaps if you're doing big work for a big corporation who has several different accounts they want you to run payment for, you could. But I would encourage you that if you're going to store payment information, you do it at the client level. This is called, and maybe Adam, you can explain this a little bit more. It's called tokenization, right? This storing the payment information. You're not liable
Correct.
for it. We're PCI compliant with the tools, the processing tools that we're using to build TimeSolvPay here.
Yeah, and that's a really cool thing too, Scott, that you bring up. We are PCI compliant. So what we do is we pass that down to you the way that this integration is built. So there's no quarterly scans or your annual PCI self-assessment questionnaires that you have to do, and and a lot of processors out there, if you don't complete that, you could be charged $29.99 a month, $49.99 a month I've seen, and that can get talk about extra fees and things like that. So we are PCI compliant, and what that also means is that we're also going to store these as tokens for you. These tokens, if there was a breach, they do not correlate back to anything. No one would be able to use it for anything. So that's how we keep all of that information safe and pass that along to you.
I'm going to show you the leverage of having this client payment information stored in TimeSolve in just a few minutes. But just know that this is where you would go to do that. The next thing I want to show with TimeSolvPay, one of the great reasons to have and use an integrated payment solution right in TimeSolve is setting up recurring payments. So when you go to the TimeSolve menu here, you may have noticed this when when we're going to settings, there is a navigation item here called recurring payments. A lot of law firms I know will set up a recurring or essentially a payment plan, if you will, for their clients. And this is a real easy way to do that in TimeSolv. You'll want to have first collected their payment information and store it, just like I showed you where to store it, before you can set up a recurring payment. So that's step one. You've already accomplished that. You have their payment information. You come over here to new recurring payment. And when you go to find the matter you want to set up recurring payment for, you're going to notice you won't see, this is not my entire client list. This is a relatively small list. These are only the clients in which I have payment information on file. So TimeSolv is only going to display to you these clients, the ones that you have the payment information for. So we're going to pick Tim Couch, Cleveland Browns. You could do a reference number of some sort if you'd like. It's sort of similar to a check number. You could say, you know, this is a, you could say payment plan. I could type payment plan through June 1, 2022. This reference information will show up on the statement that you can send to your clients. So it's kind of handy to have this. And I do know I learned from the TimeSolv support people that the number of characters that are accepted in this field for reference is quite long. I'm not sure the exact count, but you can write quite a bit here, I think. So just so you know, this is a good place to make sure you can pass information that the client will see on the statements. You would then include the amount, $1,000. How often do you want it to run? Probably monthly. You want the next date to charge to be, let's just say it's going to be March 1st. And you want it to end after, you can either do, you have options by the amount. So it runs every month until it eventually pays off, let's say $10,000. That could be somewhat easy because you don't have to then calculate how many months it's going to take. Or you could, as you saw, do it by a specific number of months. Like you want it to run 6 times, 7 times, which is the equivalent of 6, 7, 8 months. Or you can go ahead and put a specific date. So there's a lot of options in how you want to end the recurring payment. And then you would just hit save. And away you go. That recurring payment is up here. And because you have the payment information on file, stored in TimeSolv, it will automatically run that payment on the date that you chose to start it on, which in this case was March 1st. Now this is, the question came up, will this automatically generate and send statements on the date of recurring payment also? It will send a receipt, an email receipt. So you could set up an email to be sent in the specific client area, the payment information. Does it actually send a statement? That's a really like a full statement with the receipt that is sent by email. I don't know the answer to that question. I'll be brutally honest, but it's something that I will follow up on to find out. TimeSolv support should be able to answer that question for you as well. There are other options, like if you are a LawPay user and LawPay does integrate with TimeSolv, there is a bit of gymnastics you have to go through in order to do a recurring payment. You have to go into the client and matter, you have to go to a specific matter, you then have to generate a recurring payment reference code, you then have to take that recurring payment reference code here, copy it, then you have to go into your TimeSolv or your LawPay portal and copy this reference code and set up the recurring payment that way. It's, in other words, you'd have to spend a good 10, 15 minutes setting up a recurring payment that you could do in TimeSolvPay in about, how long did that take me? 30 seconds to set up. So recurring payments is a great way to just sort of set it and forget it right here in your TimeSolv account. You don't have to go anywhere else. The next thing that's nicely built in here with TimeSolv is turning on the client portal for a particular client or matter, or specifically the right contact for your client. So in order to turn on the client portal, you want to go over to the clients and settings. And on this general page, if you scroll down to the bottom, you'll see a section called client portal. You'll want to check the box that you want to enable the portal. You can require a login. So you can create out of the gate, you can create a password for them, which they can change. You can determine whether you want them to see billed entries or all entries, including entries you haven't billed for yet, or just not visible at all. You want to receive all your portal invoice payments. This is where you can choose between your operating and trust account as I mentioned. If you have more than one operating account, you can choose whichever operating account you want to use. Do you want to allow the use of trust balance when paying invoices through the portal? So if you do have a client that already has money in a trust account and you want them to pay the invoice through the portal, you can check this box right here and it'll go ahead and pay out of the trust balance that you have set up. So again, TimeSolv support can handle a lot of the questions about how to set up the client portal. But more importantly, what happens with that client portal is that when you send out your invoices, this is how it'll look to the client. So the client will get this email. Thank you for your business. Please find the attached invoice. Here it is, the PDF of the invoice. If you have any questions, contact so-and-so at the phone number. I also even set here, if there are no objections to this invoice, we'll run payment in 5 working days. If your payment method has changed, please contact us. I'll show you what that means in just a little bit. You can change this language. Again, under the invoice settings here is where you can change all the defaults of what the email message will look like. If you notice, this is the exact same message. You can also, when people have paid their invoices, this can be the email that will be sent out and so on. Here, though, you'll notice in this email, it says, please click here to view your invoice. This is because I had the client portal turned on for this particular client. And what I did for him was under client and matters, I went to the client level here. I have my contacts tab. Joe Blow is the contact type who receives the invoice. So I hit edit. And right down here in the right-hand column has portal access. I turned that on. So now he has Joe Blow client access or portal access. That automatically will create this button in the email that gets sent to the client. So now I'm going to go ahead and copy this link. I'm going to open it in a new browser window only because if I use the same browser that I'm doing this in, it'll automatically log me out of my TimeSolv account, and that's no fun. So I'm going to go ahead and do this in Firefox. So what you see now, I am now logged in as Joe Blow to the TimeSolv client portal. And here's the name of my firm, Laidlaw & Associates. I am viewing the invoice here for the work that's done. I see the total is just under $1,000. I can click this to pay, and I can go ahead and pay via credit card or bank account. Now, this is obviously, if you're a firm that's decided, I don't want to do that tokenization thing that Adam and Scott talked about, that sounded really cool. I'd rather just have my clients enter their credit card information and pay the invoice here through a portal. And this is where they would do that via either credit card or ACH. They would click this button, and then Joe Blow would put in his information here. And they can go back in this client portal. This is more than just a place to pay your invoice. You can see previous payment history here. I can go back and see previous invoices. In this case, I don't have any more than just one I can pay here. This is where you could see time and expense entries for the work that's been done. You can see that it's been billed and so on, expenses. I can go back to I can go back a year. Let's see, I don't even know if anything's going to come up. But search for, no, probably for expense entries I won't, because I rarely, my demo account did that. Let's go back, I don't know, November of 2020 and see what we have. Oh, sure, yeah. All sorts of time entries here. So it is a place where beyond just accepting payment, where if you would like your clients to see past work, this is where they can access that. And again, access past invoices too. So I'm right now showing just all unpaid invoices, but if I go to all and hit search, you can see here's all the invoices for the work that I've done for Joe Blow. Joe Blow can access these. So again, this can save time. If you are a firm that find you have clients who are calling in frequently, like, hey, can you resend that invoice? Hey, I didn't get that, all that sort of stuff. Instead of you having to do the work, point them to the client portal, and they can go back and access the June 13th, 2019 invoice if they'd like, and see it. So it's a great tool. And more importantly for this demonstration, how you can accept payment after you have TimeSolvPay turned on. Okay, moving along here, let's talk a little bit deeper now about some of the things you can do in TimeSolvPay that aren't integrated deeply into into TimeSolve itself, but are available through the TimeSolvPay portal. So again, if you go to TimeSolvPay here to settings, once you're hooked up, you will have a link here that says TimeSolvPay portal. When I go to open that up, this is a slightly different view of everything that's happened with payments that you have received through TimeSolvPay. So Adam, I'm going to let you kind of walk through some of the important things you can find here in your TimeSolvPay portal.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. So inside of the portal, what we have here is the main dashboard. So what this is going to do is going to tell you what you've taken in terms of invoices, payments, and also any sort of advanced fee retainers that you've collected. So you can see that on the dashboard here, but also what you can gather from here is the reports on the left-hand side. So that's where you're going to be able to get your deposit reports and reconciliation reports. That way you can balance the bank accounts with TimeSolve and TimeSolvPay. You're also going to be able to manage any sort of disputes or chargebacks, as they're also known. What's going to happen is that you're going to have the option to go into settings, and underneath the notifications, you can turn on the dispute notification and put an email in there. You can put whatever email address you would want to accept this notification. But the important thing is that this notification will come through. It'll let you know that that dispute is happening. You can go directly to the dispute tab and upload any documents that are requested, and you can manage it directly from there. So the good thing to note here is that there's no more having to fax this information out anymore like we used to have to, like we used to in the past. Sometimes those turned into black holes. We wind up missing the deadlines, and now we're out $5,000 because someone disputed the charge. So that's a very easy thing and a very good thing to keep watch of inside of this portal. And then also another very cool feature of this portal is the website payment link. So the website payment link, which you can access by going to apps, and then you'll see website payments, and then basically you'll be able to launch that. And then this link, it's a very simple link. It does not tie back to TimeSolve. So that's a very important thing here to note. If a payment comes through here, it will have to be ledgered like an outside payment would in TimeSolve. Okay, so it's just one important thing to note.
Yeah, and so this is, and I will show you here in just a second when we get done. If you need to do like a one-off accepting of a payment, you don't need to do it here. I'll show you where you can do that in TimeSolve right now. But again, this gets back to, I know it can be convenient feeling, I guess, to just, hey, I'll put a link out on our website and have people submit a payment that way. We would discourage you in doing that because of what Adam just described, and instead point them towards that portal. With the, that's in the, that way when they're running the payment, and that was one thing I didn't mention and I should have, that portal, when so-and-so is in the portal, Joe Blow, and makes that payment, it will automatically mark that invoice as paid and allocate the payment to it. So you don't have to do that reconciliation work like you normally do when you like accept a check, or if somebody walks into your office and pays cash or whatever the case may be. If you are really like, hey, I really want to have that link on my website, this is where you could go and copy it. There are some other methods in which you can make that link look even prettier.
Yeah, and the thing that I always tell people, especially when I used to advise on firms and setting all of this technology up, people are a creature of habit, right? So if someone is used to paying through a link on a website, we obviously don't want to take it away from them.
Right.
But, we're going to replace it with something that's obviously, quicker, it's more efficient, it's coming back, coming back to the system. But obviously, if we have those clients, we we just want to make sure that we're facilitating their payment the way that they either feel comfortable, which is going to make them pay it faster, or especially more efficiently.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Adam. Yeah, so let me walk back through our deck here so that we can keep track of where we are. So we talked about, this is the place, the portals where you can access your dashboard, run reports. If there are disputes, this is where you can manage those disputes and where you can find the link for the website. Let's talk about processing fees just briefly. I know we have about 15 minutes left and there's a couple of things I want to go through, but processing fees is just sort of comes with using electronic payments, right, Adam? There is an advantage to taking ACH payment because the fees are slightly different, right?
Yes. So there is an advantage to taking ACH payment. So ACH payment, you have the 1% up to a $10 cap on those ACH payments. The one thing to note about the ACH payment, it is treated as a check, right? So what we do for our clients, for individuals who are on TimeSolvPay, let's use a $1,000 ACH as an example. We'll give you that ACH the next day. We'll give you that $1,000, on Tuesday if you accept it on Monday. But you also have to keep in mind that for the next 5 days, there could be something that could happen to that payment. The account could be closed. The funds are not there by the time that the call makes it to the bank. Things like that. So yes, credit cards may be a little bit higher, but you do have that peace of mind that once you do get that credit card payment, it takes a lot for someone to take it away from you, rather than an ACH, which yes, it could cost less, but it has a little bit more volatility than the credit card.
That's a good point. And then I know the question comes up all the time, is there a way I can pass along the processing fees for credit cards to my clients? And that is a term typically called surcharging. And I think a lot of payment processors try to discourage businesses from surcharging, but we know it is a reality. And it's something that for the legal profession, I know, Adam, you could probably speak to this a little bit. Most bar associations, I believe, have made or have rendered opinions on surcharging, right?
Yes, and surcharging. So there is a lot of suppression when it comes to surcharging, and that's just mainly due to it happening without really understanding, and also having the technology in place to make sure that it's being done legally, especially in the professional services sector, right? So the important thing is to obviously choose a processor that understands that, has the technology to keep you safe when it comes to doing that. Right. So that's where we come into play. We will have that offering in the coming months through TimeSolvPay, and it is legal to use as far as right now in every state except for Connecticut and Massachusetts.
An important note with surcharging as well is if you decide you are going to surcharge, it's all or nothing, right? Like you can't just decide Correct. Like this client I do want to do surcharging for, but this client over here I don't. It's blanket, right?
Yeah, so you can't have a choice. So like, client A is going to get a surcharge, but client B does not get a surcharge. So it's going to be everybody who's paying by credit card. Our systems are built to recognize credit cards and debit cards, so it will waive that surcharge for anybody using a debit card to pay that invoice and or ACH e-check. So it'll keep everybody in regulation when it comes to that.
Okay. All right. I want to move along and show the actual methods of increasing that collection rate. And first of all, we want to make sure you should be emailing your invoices to your clients first and foremost. You should not be printing them and putting them in the mail. Emailing allows you to insert links like you saw with the email itself to allow your clients to easily access a place to collect payment. So that sort of should go without saying. I'm going to skip through these next few slides about collection rates. Collection rates are low, relatively speaking, for law firms for a variety of reasons, but on average, it's less than 90% collection rate on your invoices. So you're eating over 10% of potential profits. So how can we go about making sure that doesn't happen using TimeSolvPay? So variety of collection methods, some that we've already described, and these go from most painful to least painful. Link on the website we already talked about and why it's painful. If you have a link on your firm's website, they make a payment there, you still have to go into TimeSolv, record that payment as I'll show you how you record it here. You have to go into TimeSolv, go under payments. When you find the client matter, you have to say, I'm doing an external credit card, because it's essentially what it is from that, even though it's a TimeSolvPay portal thing. Record the payment, allocate the payment to the invoice. You've just gone through a lot of steps. Not optimal. So next least painful method, but still, I think, relatively painful compared to some of the other methods I'm going to show, includes a manual one-time charge. So you do have the ability, if somebody calls in and says, I want to pay this invoice, I'm going to go to a client I'm pretty sure I don't have an invoice for, or excuse me, a payment method on file. I'm going to go to Jared. He called in and said, I want to pay matter A. So I can come in here to payment method and do credit card manual entry. Click on that. I'm going to charge him $1,500. Save and charge. Now up will pop the credit card screen, and you could take the credit card information that he's given to you on the phone, whatever. It's a one-time charge that you can do right here from this screen. You hit submit. The payment's going to show up down here. You still have to allocate that payment to the specific invoice, so the invoice can be marked as charged or as paid. So again, suboptimal, but easier, I think, than having it's essentially like your own version of having a website link. Instead of the client entering the payment information, you're entering the payment information. But either way, you still have to allocate the payment.
Right, exactly. And the big thing is it's not being entered again someplace else. You know, it's reducing that redundancy, which is going to reduce the amount of errors that could possibly happen.
The next easier method is if you have a card on file and running a one-time charge. So what that would look like is, let's go to that Amir, who I know I have a payment method on file. I stored it earlier. Now under payment method, you're going to see another option, credit card on file. Again, put in the amount, hit save. It's going to run the payment just like it would if it was a manual entry. But again, still got to allocate that payment towards the specific invoice. Okay, so that's still somewhat painful. One of the least painful ways, client portal, they pay themselves through the client portal using TimeSolvPay. Not a bad way to accept payment. You don't have to do anything, and more importantly, the payment is allocated immediately to that specific invoice marked as paid. Now, the fastest, easiest way is if you have that payment information on file, you go to the sent invoice screen, and you can search for invoices and show me only invoices in which I have a payment method on file. Let's go back a little ways, because I probably need to go back. Let's go back to March of last year. So now I have all my invoices with a payment method on file. I'm going to sort this by who still has an opening balance or a balance. So you can see I have a variety of people here that still owe me money, that I have a payment method on file. I can select multiple payments, multiple invoices, and hit charge, and it'll run payment on all of these at once. So I could literally get paid for all of these invoices with one click. Really powerful. One-time charge in batch. Now here's an even better way of doing this. Part of that agreement I mentioned up at the top, the credit card authorization form you take as part of your intake with a new client, you collect that payment information. Why not also have an agreement put into place that if they don't dispute the invoice within 5 days, 4 days, 10 days, whatever you want it to be, you're going to run payment on that invoice because you have the payment information on file. Going back to that method I talked about with my utilities, I have it set that it's a different amount every month. But I don't look at it. I only have it set that if it exceeds a certain amount, I will, not want it paid. Why not do that for your clients here? This is a methodology that's been developed by TimeSolv called zero AR. It's a way to reduce your accounts receivable to essentially zero. The only time you're going to have a payment not be run or not be run through, not be accepted, is if the payment information itself has gone bad. The credit card is expired, it's gone over its limit, or like Adam described, if there's an issue with the ACH information, funds aren't available, that sort of thing. For firms that are using this at TimeSolv, they have a collection rate that's 97+%. Now, I challenge anybody who's sitting on here, if do you have a payment, an AR of 3% basically, that are just sitting out there not getting paid of your invoices. So again, the methodology would be, hey, it's these firms that do it, they know, they send their invoices on the 5th of every month. They give 5 days, and if they don't hear a dispute on the invoice within 5 days, they run payment. They get paid on the 10th of every month. They know they're going to get paid. They go through their sent invoice screen right here. They select everybody, they have a payment method on file. I select all, hit charge, and they run payment for dozens and dozens and dozens, hundreds of invoices. With one click, the payment gets run. It's incredibly powerful. I just can't get over how cool I think this is, to make sure that you're getting paid for every single cent you should be getting paid for. Okay, we've done a lot here, I know. I want to ask one last poll question, since we are running up to the top of the hour. We've had a couple of people I know drop off a bit, but I do want to ask one last poll, and that is just simply, if you're not using TimeSolvPay now, what kind of interest do you have in learning more about how TimeSolvPay can help you lower your AR, increase your profits? Just go ahead and give us a yes or no answer. We'll make sure that a representative from TimeSolvPay follows up with you, and we can walk you through the sign-up process, and then more details about how to do the things that I just showed you here. So I went through a lot. Do we have questions? I got to work on my my clock management, Adam. That we went through an hour pretty quick here.
I know, and an hour flies by when you're having fun.
Yeah, it sure does.
That's the thing.
Okay, I'm going to end the poll. Great. Okay. We had a couple good questions come through from a couple people here while we were on the webinar. So I will appreciate everyone's time here. Hopefully you learned a lot about how you can use TimeSolvPay, built right in to your existing TimeSolv portal, how you can apply to become a merchant, and then how you can really use it, leverage its features to your advantage to lower your AR. Lowering your AR just means you're increasing profits. It means you're getting paid for every penny you should be getting paid for. So if you have any questions, you can always call TimeSolv at that 1-800 number. The 1-800 number you see on your screen, I believe extension 2 will get you to support. If you go to timesolv.com and you go to the help section of the website, you should be able to find all sorts of documentation on TimeSolvPay and payments and so on. So I really appreciate everyone's time today. Adam, thank you. I was glad to get the band back together again and do another webinar.
Thank you, Scott. And I hope everyone has a wonderful week.
Excellent. Thank you, everybody. And we will catch up to you hopefully sooner rather than later. Have a good day, everybody.